Hey everybody, Scout Crafty here again, TGIF. It's Friday. It's very close to it's the second Saturday of May is National Train Day. And my buddy Ken over at Lots of Trains, he started a YouTube channel, and he put out a challenge to do something train related for National Train Day. So I'm stepping up to the challenge, and I was trying to rack in my brains last night on what I could do. You know, tool related, what I do, and train related. So I came up with possibly making a small hammer out of a railroad spike. Thought it'd be fun. Let's give it a shot. Let's see what we got. Okay, and here is the railroad spike that we are going to use as this is attempted very good to be a makeshift hammer, more or less. And we have a railroad spike here. We have an old piece of old thread. We have some steel tubing, some old steel tubing. And we have this beautiful handle that we got from John Oxoris. It was his father's, from his late father, used to collect. And you remember he donated a bunch of handles to the show. So all this, I think, should make a really nice hammer. Okay, so here's my basic design of what I wanted to do. We're just going to have to cut this down a little bit to keep the balance right. And we're going to have to first start off by cleaning up this railroad spike. Now, the good thing is this was never used. It was never underground. So you can see here, this is basically what a new old stock railroad spike would look like. And you can see it does pick up some rust because of the high carbon content, but we'll get this cleaned up and hopefully looking good. So let's get started. Okay, here's our post-wire brush evaluation of the new old stock railroad spike. And you can see that it says here, is that a S? Is that a S, MC? So maker's marks, I guess, and we're going to flatten out the top here to make this the face. But you could see the texturing on here. It looks like some, you know, maybe it was pressed in and formed, and, you know, the heat treating and everything. Just an amazing invention, you know, the railroad spike and how it works. Okay, let's get getting this shiny, cutting it down, and getting working on it. Now, if you notice, you'll see me moving back and forth, left and right, and working my way around the railroad spike. And the reason I'm doing this is because I address it from different angles, and that gives me a greater chance of keeping that top nice and flat. If you only stay in one position and grind it, if you're off a little bit, it'll really stay that way. So, and if you notice here, going back and forth along the sides of the railroad spike, again, they will build up heat from the friction of the sandpaper, but by moving it back and forth, you stop the heat and also keep it flat again. We are moving along on the project. You can see here we got most of the surface area. We got all the scale taken off, all that rough scale here. This is all going to be cut off here from here down. So got everything. You can see here, it looks pretty good. And this is actually with a 40 grit rough sanding disc. We didn't even get to the 120, but you see what a nice finish that leaves. We flattened out the top here. That looks nice, right? And we didn't even finish with that, but you can see now there's the flat top. Here will be the body of the hammer. Now we're going to cut it off here, and then we have to decide what kind of shape we're going to go for the back here. Something, you know, pointy, or I got to see what I feel like. So we'll cut this off somewhere about here and get that. Now here's a tip: whenever you're putting something in a vise like this, and you're going to be putting a lot of pressure over here, you have to put something of the same thickness in the other side of the vise. You see, if I could put it in the middle of the vise, it wouldn't be a problem. But because of the head on the railroad spike, I have to grip it by the corner here. So you put something the same diameter in the other side. This way, it gives you a good pressure on here when you squeeze it. If you didn't have this piece of wood here, it would cant the vise, and it would not give you as strong as of a grip. Okay, we're coming along nicely here. You see we have the shape of the head where we want it. We have the right length. Now, but you know what's interesting? Here's the shaft that's going to go in here, right? And look at how you can change the appearance of the hammer. If you balance it in the middle, you see it looks there. But notice if you move it up a little bit, you see here, you see the difference in how that looks if it's moved up, and the performance on how the hammer will work. You know, obviously you wouldn't want it, you know, back here, but although some Japanese hammers, they have it set up like this where they're shipped. But you see that? You know, how different the hammer will look, you know, depending on where you put this. So you have to go by what you feel like. So we're going to do that now. Okay, pardon the shaky hand. We want to drill this hole in the hammerhead that we don't want it to go all the way through to the top. So it's called a blind hole. And to make sure we do this, we get down here, we look on the side here, we bring the drill on the side of the hammerhead down to where we want it to stop, right there. And then we come up here and set the depth stop. You see the depth stop? We set it right there. So now we don't have to worry when we're drilling if we're going to go through. We just drill and just watch the depth stop, and when it stops, that'll be as far as we want to go down. And now we're ready to finish drilling the hole. Here's another reason why you have to get a drill press vise, a good one, because now what happens is when we just finished doing a drilling operation on the drill press, I want to do a tapping operation. I bring the whole vise over to my great-grandfather's vise, snug it in, and now I don't have to remove it. It still stays straight and level, and this is why these are so great. Another reason a drill press vise is so awesome, you could use it on its side like we have here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to counterbore because we want that outer sleeve to fit nicely inside the handle here. And this is a little pilot. This has a little non-cutting pilot guide that is on this counterbore that when I will drill in here, it'll go down and it will guide the outer one into there without spinning around. It's a really good and give you a flush cut. That's what the counterbore does. Isn't that nice? Okay, now we threaded this in here. It's nice and threaded in there. We will epoxy it in there, but it ain't going anywhere. I mean, I had to use the vise to get it on. And then we threaded the inside here. You can see it's counterbore. Now you have to decide how big or how tall you want the hammer. And you can see how you can have it any length you want. It's all personal preference, but you can see how it changes the whole look and the whole balance of the hammer depending on where you put it. So you have to sit down, and just like you did with finding out where you want to drill that hole, you go back and forth. It's your own personal preference. So before we get to the finished product, I just wanted to tell you, there's something fascinating about trains, and it's not just me. It goes around the world. I mean, people have always been fascinated by trains, and different trains have different levels of fascination. A diesel train is fascinating, but nothing like a steam engine. And if you've ever seen a steam engine up close, and they almost like living entities. You can hear them at idle. It sounds like there's almost a pulse to them, a breathing, a sound. You could hear the steam running the turbine that runs the generator. It's something to see. If you've never been on a steam ride or taken a steam engine ride, you must do it. It's a must-do thing. The smell of coal and steam, there's just nothing compares. It's unbelievable. And those of you who have experienced it know exactly what I'm talking about. One thing that's really interesting is that Union Pacific, at the pinnacle of the steam engines in about the 1940s, they made the biggest steam engine. It was called the Big Boy. 1941 it was made, and it's huge. It's 1,250,000 pounds. It weighs more than a 747. It's longer than two city buses. It's a tremendous locomotive. And what happened was from 1941 to 1961, it was in service, racked up over 1 million miles, and then they put it to the retirement because the diesel engines were much more efficient and easier to operate and easier to maintain. A steam engine is extremely complicated. Well, it sat that way in a rail museum in California for about almost 60 years. And then in 2013, they decided to restore it, and they restored it from the ground up. And now it's touring the country, and I'll put a link in the description. You have to see this thing. It's just amazing. you know, the whistle, the sound of the steam whistle from that, and just the raw power. It's an amazing, something that we're lucky that we can get to see, because, you know, most of us never would have seen something like that after they retired them, but they brought it back, they restored it, and it's touring the country. So if it ever comes near you, I suggest, you know, it's on hold now because of what's going on, but if you can see it, I suggest you see it. It would be a sight. I haven't seen it yet, but I've seen other big locomotives, and it's just amazing. You have to see it. Okay, so let's see what else we got. Now you know my favorite part. Remember what this project looked like before we started. And we're calling this project done. Special thanks again to John Oxoris and his late father for the beautiful handles that he sent over. I mean, look at that, huh? Anyway, didn't this come out just beautiful? I love this thing. And you know, it's balanced and everything just for my liking. Perfect size, the way I had it set. Actually, I put it together. It was 5/8 of an inch longer, and I didn't like the dimensions, and I took it down, and now for me it's perfect. I just love this thing. I love the balance, the feel, the way it looks. Did the back up here like that, you know, a little conical, and the way the head, and it still maintains the railroad spike look, but look at the face on there. This is just a lovely, pinned it, you know, with a brass pin in here. You could see, so obviously it's threaded in, epoxied. Everything's epoxied and threaded all the way through, but the pin is there just to make sure that it can't move at all. This is threaded all the way down, and you could probably see it if I hold something light underneath. Yeah, you can see the threads, how deep they go down. That's all epoxied in there, all the way down, and slow setup. Just a beautiful little hammer. Let's try it out, see how now, because of the face of this hammer, I could really see it coming in handy for something like if you wanted to, you know, make a corner or pound down some sheet metal. I could see this really doing a good job in that because of, again, the way this is balanced and the type of face it has. But it just is a lovely hammer. And this little back here, the way that you can always use that for any kind of painting. Kind of texturing some surface or whatever you had to do. I just really love this hammer. So in closing, had a lot of fun with this project, and I hope you enjoyed it. Special thanks to Ken over at Lots of Trains for putting out the challenge. Check out his channel. I'll have a link in the description. Say hello, and thanks very much for tuning in. Hope you have a nice day. Hope you enjoy your weekend. Take care now. Bye-bye.